Alright, so what we'll be creating is the application you see, which is a productivity app that will help us stay productive and focus on the goal by organizing our life and also giving us small boost of dopamine whenever we tick off things from our list. And what we can do is we can actually type anything inside here, the input field, and add to do, which will be then added as a new component to our list. And also we'll be using Vite, the modern builder for React. We'll be using Tailwind CSS to stylize the application to make it look pretty as so. And also we'll be using a modern React or modern approach in JavaScript and React to make it look and behave like it does. And also we'll be adding some sugarcoating, which is just a great thing to show off. Right. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump into the video. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the world of React, where we can finally stop crying over the tangled and complicated web of HTML and JavaScript. Because React is the JavaScript library that makes building user interfaces feel like a breeze. And with React, you can create reusable UI components that are easy to maintain, scale, modify. And in this short course, we'll be focusing on the modern way of creating React using functional components and Vite and Tailwind CSS. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Alright, so in order to start working with React, we need to install Node.js, which is JavaScript runtime environment for computers, which is an open source and cross-platform and server-side runtime. And we'll need it because when we want to run React application, we'll be using commands that use Node package manager, so package manager for Node.js, that run the development server for the application using tools like Webpack and Rollup, and that both of these and many more require Node.js to function. And technically, we will not be using it directly to be used automatically in the background, but we need to have it installed. And maybe if you have already, began your journey with JavaScript in any way or form, maybe you have already Node.js installed on your machine. Normally, it doesn't come on any like Windows or macOS machines by default, so there's a way to check if you do have it. You run command line, so you basically have to open terminal, command line, bash, or whatever you have. For example, I have it here. And by the way, we will be using a cheat sheet, 1 page long cheat sheet I created for the purpose of this video, which you can easily download. I'll share the link to download it. So you open terminal and then you use the following command. So node v, and we paste it here. Command v doesn't work, so we'll type it node -v. And as you can see, I've got version of Node 16.16.0. If you do not have it installed, so basically if you run node-v and you received any kind of error message, you need to go to the website https://nodejs.org/en for English, which will be added automatically. If you type Node.js into your any search engine of your choice, you will be prompted with this website, but you can go directly to that link if you wish. And basically you will see nothing fancy here, just 2 big buttons to download the most modern and updated version, which is at the time of recording 19.7.0, and there is this long-term stable, which I always recommend for you to use. It doesn't really matter if you have some slightly older versions like I do, 16, I'll need to update it, but well, procrastination much. All right, so yeah, that's done, that's checked. All right, now we go to point number 2. So have your IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment, or code editor of your choice installed. I suggest VS Code because I do use VS Code. You can have anything really, but it will be very useful and resourceful and convenient to use something like VS Code. All right, so now we can actually start doing the fun stuff. So first of all, I will open the terminal again. This time I'll be using git bash because it does. You can use copy and paste there. So basically I'll copy this thingy, right? But one more thing is I want to use it in some particular folder because I want to create. At the moment we are somewhere. I want to go into projects because I do have projects folder, and if you do not have any folder you want to go, because as a matter of fact you can run this command which goes start full stop, and it will launch the folder that you're currently in. So basically in my case it's the default folder for my user, and inside I've got a folder created which is named projects, and in order to go into that folder, subfolder of the current directory we are in, I will type cd, which stands for change directory, I guess, and projects. All right, so we are now in projects, and here in projects, I haven't really created any new folder. If you want to create a new folder, you would use function md, which stands for make directory, and then type any name that you want. All right, and press enter, and you'll create it, and then you can use cd into that folder of your creation. Right. Now, when we are in the projects folder, we want to run this command. So npm stands for node package manager. So we are using node. We are running the function command, which uses the following template. Uses technology called vit, which is, well, you will see later on, it's a bundler for React. And latest version, it will be named my project, we'll change that. And it will use template of React. So we'll paste this. Does it really want to paste? Does it? All right. And one more thing, we'll rename it to my React project and press enter. And now basically we just need to wait to, oh, done. That's it. Actually, that's really quick. So now, as you can see, now run cd my React project. So we'll copy this and paste it. cd, we are in that project again. And npm install. We need to run npm install because basically it didn't yet download any packages that we'll need. And so we need to wait a moment for Node to do that. But in the meantime, you can, go make yourself a really nice cup of tea, like I did just before starting this recording, and basically it will be done in a moment. You know what, I'll fast forward to the end of that. Okay, as you can see, it added 82 packages and audited all of them in 2 minutes. And we'll need to add these 3 packages as well, because we'll want to use Tailwind CSS in our project. So we'll basically just paste this once more and press enter. Just wait for the project to do its magic, which should take just a couple of seconds, maybe minutes, depending on your internet speed. Actually, this bash does not provide any form of feedback to what's happening under the hood, so that might feel a little strange at first, but well, you can get used to that. All right, 55 seconds. Now we are ready to start. And in order to start our environment, I mean IDE or code editor, when we are in the folder where our project is, as far as this terminal is concerned, you can run the following command, which is code and full stop. Code space full stop, and it will run our project inside a new window of Visual Studio Code in my example. And I will increase the font size slightly. This should be enough. All right. All right, so at the very beginning, most of the time, you'll be met with this annoying prompt that Git repository. Oh, maybe you will not, but well, in my case, I always am at the Git repository at actually my folder, my main folder, where I always start my terminal adventure, has too many active changes and blah, blah, blah. And in order to make this go away, we need to go into this tab, source control. And then when you see this Eric, which is my main folder, and basically there's everything I've ever worked on. You go press right mouse button and close repository. And now you can publish this repository to GitHub if you have GitHub connected to your Visual Studio Code, which I suggest you do, because then you can publish it to GitHub, publish it as a private or public repository. Let's make it a public repository. And as you can see, I just pressed that and everything has been pushed to GitHub. And basically I've just already created a repository. Maybe it will be your first repository ever. Maybe not, because maybe you've worked on other languages, but who knows? It's well, it's JavaScript and React now. So we are here. I'll press this toggle panel, Control plus J, to toggle the panel with any type of shell, bash, whatever I have. And I want to run this following command. So, well, yeah, it did run it. So it created a config file and created post CSS config file. So yeah, now one more thing is we need to open the Tailwind config file. We'll then collapse all this stuff. There is this handy shortcut Alt plus Z if you want to have all the words wrap so they do not go over the window, outside the window. So you can see our content is empty in this Tailwind config CJS file, which is basically a configuration file for Tailwind. And what we want to do is we want to specify which content, which files should be affected by the Tailwind CSS, which is basically a CSS UI library we'll be using. And in our Explorer, we've got this source file, a source directory, src, sorry. And here we'll put all the, well, basically assets or components or however we'll call it in a moment. So as specified here, first of all, this index.html, which is this entry file for React. and the whole src folder. So basically just copy this one or copy whole, you know, this, sorry, copy this whole file, copy it, go to Tailwind and replace it. And basically just add this. And that's it. That's it. And well, one more thing, when it comes to Tailwind, we need to add those 3 headlines to the file in src index.css, or however, sometimes you can call it globals or global.css, main.css, whatever. At the very top, we'll add these 3 things. And yeah, so Tailwind base, Tailwind components, Tailwind utilities. And as far as our cheat sheet is concerned, that's it. We'll be running this one command, which I'll copy. I'll close this and make this one full screen. All right. So maybe it's too big, slightly. Yeah, this will be better. So I'll now open it again, PowerShell, paste this one, run it, and it runs, Vite runs and bundles our React application and runs it on this following IP and the port 5173, which we can open by pressing Ctrl. It opens it in some other window, and basically now it's the fun part, making those 2 thingies. Yeah, I need to reset it, and then that's it. That's it. Basically, that's it. We have already created some kind of application. It's a template, right? However, this template is it does work. As you can see, it's there's some animation already. There are links. You can go into Vite, you can go into React. Those are 2 great technologies, and there's even a button that's interactive. You can press on it and it does change the count. But basically we'll scrap it and we'll start working on a project of our own. All right, so as mentioned, we are using Vite, all right, which is a build tool and a development server. And normally when creating React app, we'll be using the create React app or CRA as for shortcut. And well, basically Vite is better. It's a newer technology. It doesn't use Webpack, but it uses, well, its own technology, as a matter of fact. And it's designed to be fast and optimize, the developer experience, etc., etc. Yeah, it enables fast and smooth development experience, which we'll see, because at the moment we will go into the app.jsx. We'll make this slightly slower. This we can collapse. As you can see, we've got everything here. Everything that's happening on the page, we've got here inside this app.jsx, because basically that app.jsx file is being displayed on the site. And if we look at our Explorer window again, index.html file is the entry file we'll see. That's the network uses. So if we reload, it's this, well, basically this HTML file that's here. It's being, downloaded from the server and displayed. And then inside here, first of all, we can change the title if we want to mess around with stuff like that with this metadata. We can change the title to My React App, or basically what we'll be doing is fancy. I don't want to call it a to-do app. Let's call it productivity app. Right? So productivity app. That's okay. And here inside, we've got one element, one div with ID of root. And basically that div is everything that you have from React standpoint. And if you go to main.jsx, you can see it's React DOM, which stands for Document Object Model, creates root or creates the whole application inside this element that it, looks for in the document and chooses to look by ID and passes the value of root. So it says, look for the element that has ID equal to root, and inside it render application. And application is an object it imports from file named app, which is app.jsx, basically this one. And so this file is being exported into into main.jsx and being put here, rendered inside this div that we can see on the page. That's it. As far as main.jsx is concerned, we will not be looking at it anymore. Index.html after we change the title is also not used. Tailoring config is after we added the content is really not useful, and we'll be using those two files most. And basically, first of all, let's get rid of these two thingies. So let's delete this one, and it disappeared. Delete this one, and it disappeared. And the funny thing, or the beauty of React, and especially using Vite as the build tool, is that basically the changes happen instantly. So whenever we do change something, it's being reflected on the page by, well, either deleting it or updating the page or whatever. Delete this one. Well, basically, let's delete everything. Let's leave the class name. Also delete the class name. Delete this. We don't need these two, and we just. All right, so we've got an empty page, and basically we'll not be using this index.css, and technically we can delete everything that's here, because maybe you can leave this one, or you know what, we'll delete everything. We do not need anything. Color scheme light dark, we don't want this. We'll leave all these, maybe not this one. So fonts family, fonts is blah, blah, blah. All this can stay. And one more thing, we'll be resetting all the margins of all the things, because, well, some people do like the way CSS handles default values, or the browser basically handles default values. I personally do not, and I suggest that you also start not liking that, because it's always better to have full control over what you're creating, and you don't have to worry then that, oh, I created H1 marker, which stands for heading, the biggest heading, and why is there a gap between heading and the rest of the text? Oh, because the console, the Chrome or whatever, is adding additional margin between those two elements, because by default it should have some margin, but I don't want it. So we'll remove all the margins. So margin set to 0 and padding set to 0. Padding is like margin, but not quite. And we'll add this So basically you write this, meaning apply those rules inside curly braces. And there are two rules: margin, double colon, set to 0, and then semicolon to distinguish between rules. So rule 1, set margin to 0. Rule 2, set padding to 0. And that should be applied to everything. That asterisk stands for everything. If I set, for example, body, then apply those two rules to anything that is inside body element. If I set P, applied to all paragraph elements, H1 heading elements, and etc. But if you want to use this asterisk, it means apply to everything on Earth. I mean, at least this application. Okay, let's go back to that, and basically we'll be using Tailwind CSS, which allows us to use shortened CSS classes inside our applications. We will not be using the CSS files anymore, because why would we? All right, let's write something. Hello world. And it's there. And why do we have elements? Yep. Still, there's some padding added, as you can see. And I forgot that we've got still this app.css, and basically we can remove it altogether. So we've got only this index and app.css, and also do not import it. So no errors. Go to console and reload. Yeah, whatever. So we've got our H1, and well, basically H1 is font inherit, size inherit. So right now, nothing really fancy. We want to add some styling to it, so we'll use the class name property and specify the value to be font XL. Sorry, font will set to bold, text 2x large. And it's already starting to look like something is, happening here. All right, so we want to make this productivity app. Let's say it's a productivity app, not like a plain to-do list. But well, why would we display this boring hello world? Let's write something like things to do. And what else? Now we want to specify the styling for it. For the moment, it's pretty boring. Let's make it bold. All right. Sorry, font bold. And also let's make this bigger slightly. Let's make it 4XL. And that's already starting to look like something. This empty tag actually does not exist inside HTML. However, if we go into inspect and see the elements on our page, we'll see that inside the body, inside the div consisting of this ID root, which basically is the whole application, this empty tag does not exist, right? It's only used here inside our JSX, which is extension of the JavaScript, in order to, have those HTML-like tags. So this empty tag called fragment is just for organization purposes, so that it wraps some bigger part, and basically this is now treated for JavaScript or for Node. It's treated as one thing, so that the function component named app returns that one thing. Because if we delete it, at the moment it's okay, but if we duplicate this h1, you can see that blah 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 blah. Oh yeah, it actually suggests that you use this fragment tab, but basically it means that you can only export one thing, and at the moment with two parent elements. So we don't want that, and we want to wrap it. However, we'll wrap it in main element, so that, you know, it's this syntactic sugar basically for browsers. Could be div, but main sounds slightly better. And anyway, we'll give it a class name, and here we'll set it to flex column, and we'll set gap 4, width to full, and items to be center. Basically, I will not be explaining too much as far as the CSS is concerned. I'll be just, you know, writing the CSS in Tailwind. It's pretty straightforward. We open the class name attribute and assign the apostrophes. We just provide those names of the tiny classes, atomic classes that the Tailwind CSS provides. And when you hover over them, if you have a special extension for that, which is basically this Tailwind, yeah, Tailwind IntelliSense, right? And if you hover over it, like right now, you'll see this small pop-up saying which is what actual CSS class it corresponds to, which is display flex at the moment. Flex column is flex direction column, meaning that flex means it will be, well, flex column and flex means those items will be stacked from the top to the bottom. Basically, that's what we need to know for the moment. I suggest that you go and see my full tutorial on flex CSS. And also we'll set padding to, let's say, 4, which stands for 1 REM or 16 pixels. And basically, as you can see, it's already starting to look like something. And what's more, we'll remove those to have more space. We'll add a form here, so that underneath the h1 tag, so that we can actually start adding to-dos. So let's make a form, and here we'll make a class name of flex and give it a gap of 4 as well. And inside we'll actually add input field, so that's one thing, and actually, so that's an input field of type text, and placeholder will be what to do, and autofocus, so that it will be focused. And also, obviously, we want a class name and add some styling. We'll add border 2, so width of 2 pixels. Border color, border will be gray of 300. That's basically just some, you know, shade of color. P2 and rounded MD. Basically, that's already looking nice, at least as far as I'm concerned. That's one thing, and the other will be a button. Add, and here we'll give it class name. Background will be blue, 500, the nice blue. Text will be white. There will be padding of 5 points or units in Tailwind, in the X axis, and in the Y I want 2, and rounded MD, and that's already something. So yeah, that's that. If you wonder, from time to time I press Shift Alt and F, and I have got this extension called Prettier. prettier. So I press Shift Alt F, right? And then it, like, you know, sets the code inside the code editor, inside the window. Well, it aligns all the lines in a matter that it's readable. If you mess with the formatting, with the indentation, etc. And that's why it sometimes will be jumping. Yeah, that's it. All right, and the button will be of type submit. Yep. And we'll add one more button. And this will be clear done or completed, but we'll add it like this for the moment. And the class name will be red this time, 500 as well. Text white, that's basically the same. So px5, py2, rounded medium. All right. So, and one more thing, this one will be type equal to button. The difference between type button and submit is that submit actually submits the form. And we are inside this form here, right? So the buttons are inside the form. And if you press this button, it submits whatever is inside the form. It takes all the input fields, all the text fields, and it does something inside the HTML page, which sometimes is something you want, sometimes it's something you want to prevent. And in our case, we want to prevent it. But, well, technically we could not use this form, but, well, it's better if we follow the reasoning and way of doing. I'll be showing you. And the clear button doesn't do anything, really. So that's that. And right here below the form, you can collapse the form at the moment. We would like to show our list of to-dos, but we don't have them yet, or the thing. And technically what we could do is we could, like, you know, open another div, then inside the div, then blah blah blah, and make like a tree of divs here. But the problem is with React, or the good practice is to create and encapsulate things into different components. Technically, we could take this component, cut it, and create a brand new file, put the code in, and then import that file here. But we'll leave this form on its own. However, in the source folder, we'll create a new directory called components. And here we'll create a file. We'll not be creating different directories for components, which sometimes it's better to do, but in this small project, I'll be just creating new files inside the components folder. So the main thing will be to-do list.jsx. And it's empty. Technically, we know what we want to write. We could, for example, copy this, paste it here, remove this thing, put a fragment at the moment, and then we just need to change its name to do list here and here. That's one thing to do it. The other is to type it from hand, which is the worst thing to do. And the best thing to do is just have this extension installed, which is React, somewhere it was React. No, it was snippets. Come on. This ES7 plus React Redux React Native snippets. So 7 million downloads, very good one. Mostly I use only this one, which is RFCE. Press enter, and then it creates this whole thing for you, which we'll be using. All right, so yeah, we've got this to-do list. Let's come back here, and inside the to-do list, we will technically, yeah, first what we want to do, what we need to do is actually, let's make some form of creation how to create and add things. We want to have one object, which will be basically an array. And that object, that array, will be holding the data of all the things we need to do, the to-dos, so-called. And technically we could create, some variable using let keyword, because we want to, change it, obviously, alter by adding to-dos, editing to-dos, deleting them. So it will be either let or var keyword. And that's one way to do it, which is the vanilla JavaScript way of doing things. But we are in React, so I suggest, and basically that's super basic stuff right now. We'll be using tools provided directly by React team, which are so-called hooks. We're inside a function, and function is stateless. Function doesn't have a state per se. So in order to combat this, the team of React provided us with so-called hooks, which are basically a syntactic sugar for things that resemble state inside this functional component. And we'll be using a so-called useState hook. In order to use it, first we need to use the const keyword and declare a small array of two things. So basically we are destructuring an object. We'll name it to-dos and set to-dos, and it'll be equal to useState. And that's that. And just we need to import it. So we use useState, and then in the parentheses we provide the default value, so the initial value. Initial value is empty array, and we destructure the object received from this function into two constant values. One is holding the value of the whatever we are holding inside this object, right? So the object itself, and the other is a setter function. And well, we can name those two however we want. This one always stays like useState, and here will be whatever we want, whatever the initial value we want to do. And to show you into perspective how it works, we'll make a function called addToDo. So make a function addToDo. We'll use this event, or we'll not use it yet. So what we want to do is we'll make a new to-do object, right? Let's say that its ID is date now. What else? Completed is false, and title is what? Let's say it's test for the moment. And yeah, that's it. So that to-do is created, and now we want to add this newly created to-do into that to-do list. So we'll use this function, as I mentioned. So we'll use set to-dos, and we'll pass the new array, which is basically a new array. We'll use the spread syntax, to-dos, and then this to-do, which means, or maybe I'll create a new constant, constant new to-dos equals to-dos to-do. So it means that we are creating a new array, and that new array, if we leave it like this, equals new array equals basically to some newly created arrays that consist of all the items inside. So we are not passing the array by reference, we're passing the copy, or basically creating a new instance of an array with all the items exactly copied. And then we are just adding a new object. So without this, it's basically creating a new object. And that's one thing. And then let's actually console logging this will not work but doesn't matter. And to-dos. So one thing, how React works. When we add something here, that's one thing. Typing something and adding it is technically this button submits the form, and always submitting form means refreshing. And whenever we refresh the page, we lose these values that are stored as the state. So one thing we want to do is we want to grab the event, just basically pass this. We don't have to put it anywhere here. Oh wait, basically we haven't tied the button to the onClick method. So onClick was to this arrow function at to do like this E, and then we need to put this beautiful prevent default function. All right, and now it will not it still refreshes. Yeah, we just need to pass the event and then it will be working. And when we open our console, as you can see, after adding, some item is added. It receives some bullshit ID with false. I mean, the property completed set to false and title test. Everything works just beautifully. However, we don't have to write anything. If we add something, as you can see, after adding one thing, the console log is still 0 or empty. The array is empty. And after adding another one, as you can see, we added 1. And technically, we have added 2 things, right? So React works like this, that whenever we are inside this function, and this setter actually doesn't set the value yet. It just sets or sends this setting execution into quit or into the line. So basically it's quit to queue. Yeah, it sends it to queue. So the React will batch all the updates of the values and basically will update them whenever it's viable. And technically the update will happen outside this add to do function call, so it's not inside here. So when we are consoling log the to do's item, it still shows the old value before the setting to new value. So technically, if you know that, then well, you know how to work around it. If you want to console log, the new value, then you need to console log this value actually. So now let's refresh it, and now after 3 times I pressed, I've got already 3 items. So then it works like we want it to. So that's one thing. But we want to actually grab the value that's being stored here. And to do that, we'll use another hook. This time it will be ref hook, reference for short. And let's call it add to do ref, and this use ref and null. And then what we need to do is we go into input, and here we set ref equals to add to do ref. And basically that's it. You can now just go to this add to do, and here instead of this placeholder title, we'll go and type ref and current and value. And that's done. One more thing is we want to, because at the moment, right. At the moment you can add, can you? Why is nothing happening? Right, it is happening, but we are just not logging it. So let's make this const new to-dos equals to this spreader to-dos to do, and then pass it here, new to-dos, and then console log new to-dos, and now reset, and we are adding all the time the value that's being stored here. Reset, and the problem is that even if nothing is there, we're still adding, this to do from the empty input field, and we don't want to do that. So to prevent that, we'll write if statement, and then we'll check if add to do ref current value. If it's empty, then we'll just return, meaning nothing will happen. Oh, sorry, outside. So that's one. And another thing is, after adding, we would like to reset the field so that we can type something new every time we send. So after setting and after type, after here, we'll reset the input field and we'll add to do ref current value equals to nothing, or empty string, and also add to do ref current focus. No, that's the function. So we'll make sure that to do ref. We'll make sure that this thing is focused after every time we set. So as you can see, it now adds all the items as we wanted to. Give them some specific ID depending on the time we are working. Basically, that's in milliseconds. And what's more, it resets the field and focuses the field so that we can add however many we want, and also it accepts enter as the key for sending the the to-do list, the to-do list. Oh Jesus, too many same words. All right, so now let's actually write down anything we want. So here, underneath the form, we will call this function. To do this, we'll just write to-do list, and that's one thing right here. But we want to, this function has no idea, has no clue what's happening inside this thing, this object or array of to-dos. So we want to pass this information by creating a property or attribute called to-dos and passing this to-dos value that we have. So this to-do is that to-do is the to-do that we are controlling using the use state hook, and we are passing it to the property to-dos, and this property to-dos will be used here It's like basically an argument of a function. And now if we go to our, if we look at this to-do list, we can actually start doing some funny stuff. And so we will open curly braces, meaning that inside we'll be putting some JavaScript fancy code. We'll write this to-dos list, let's say length. And as you can see, we can already see how many to-dos are there, right? But we want to some kind of write them out. So let's write to-dos, full stop map. And then we'll write to-do. And like this. Not to-do, but div. And at the moment we'll write to-do dot title, and we'll close the div. And that's already starting to work. But let's encapsulate whatever is happening here, and let's make a new file. Let's call it to-do item JSX and RFSE like this. We'll delete this. We'll write to-do item, and we'll pass. First of all, we need key, which is used by React to know or just tell items from each other. We'll be passing this ID as a key property. We'll create this item property and we'll pass this to do. And that's it at the moment. And one more thing is we want to have some kind of right now it's just writing out this to-do item because every to-do item returns only this label. And let's say that it's flex and flex column, and we'll give it gap of 2, and we'll set the width to full width of the container. And when we have our to-do item, first of all, we want to grab this item we are passing, right? So this item property is the same property here as an argument. And first of all, we want to say item.title, and then remember to put it in curly brackets, because if you do not, then it will be treated as just a string. And inside curly brackets, it's treated as a JavaScript code. And now it just takes the title property of the object that we have inside every instance of this component. All right. Okay, let's make it beautiful. Let's put this class name property and let's add flex to it. Let's give it a gap of 4 because we'll be adding more items. The items will be centered. So item center, P2, shadow, rate legends, SM, shadow small. Already you can see something, appearing there, but it's not yet finished. Border of width 2, rounded, medium, cursor pointer. And now, if we want to specify anything that's happening on hovering over that item, we'll type hover, double colon, and now we can specify any, basically, any class that exists. So we're just combining, so shadow medium this time, and also hover background gray 100. And now, as you can see, we've got those tiles of things to do. If we hover over them, then you can see that you can distinguish which one we are interacting with. It gives it some kind of interactivity. So yeah, it makes it look nicer slightly. Yeah, but to each their own. And that's that. And this we will wrap with p tag, and we'll add an input field here actually, and the input field funnily enough will be the check. Yeah, so will be class name of v5 h5, type was checkbox, and check equals item completed, and already we have something, and we can check it. Nice. Refresh, add some stuff, and it says we cannot do anything because if we specify that this checked value of the checkbox is equal to some other value, then we need to specify how it should behave if we change it. So we need to add an onChange event listener property, and here we'll specify a function. The function will be called handle to do. And this function does not exist yet. We'll create it just in a second, but basically, well, yeah, handle to do is not defined. So just let's say function handle to do, and here goes a little bit of nothing, but still we cannot. Right. So how to now have it that if we press on this checkbox gets checked. If we remove these things, right, then you can check them as you want, right? Just go check, but then nothing really is working, right? Because they are not checked per se. The checkbox is checked, but the item that we are in memory is not checked because there's no connection between this checkbox and the item. As you can see, now it refreshed to the state that it took the value of the item and then set the checkbox state depending on the value, and everything is unchecked because by default it's unchecked. So what we need to do is actually we need to do a thing called prop drilling, and technically we'll be handling changing our to-do list here inside our app thing. So we've got one function called add to do, but let's say and create function called update list. List, and here we'll pass new to-dos, and that function will just do this, set to-dos to the new value that's being passed. Why do we need the new function instead of just writing it here? And we'll also update this one here, right? So instead of set to-dos, no longer set to-dos, it's just update list, it goes to that function, all right? It will make sense slightly later. And now let's make a new function called update to do. And here we'll pass ID of the to do that we want to update. And at the moment, we are only changing the completed state, and it's a Boolean. It has value of either false or true. False at the beginning by default, so true or false. So whenever we say what ID of an item we want to change, we'll know everything else because we can change from true to false or from false to true, right? So if you pass an ID, we'll just go and have the new to-dos array, which will be equal to the previous to-dos array, and we'll be mapping through that array, we'll take every to-do item and check. That's basically what it means, what I'm writing. If to-do.id, so the value ID of the to-do, if it's equal to the ID that we are passing in our function, then the to-do should be set to complete. The complete property should be set to to-do. So it means we are setting the completed property to the value that's, the contrary to what was before. If it was true, then this will be negation of the true, which means false. So we are setting it to false. And vice versa, if it was false, negations of false is true, we're setting it to true. And otherwise, return to do, and then just update list. And we'll pass the new to-dos. And correct the typo. And that's it. But now we need to pass this function here. So we go to to-do list and then update list equals to update to do. And then in to-do list, we'll pass it likewise. So update to do equals to, how was it called? Update list was here. To do equals update list. And here we receive this update to do. And actually, here in the handler to do, we'll call this update to do function. But normally we could call this update to do here. So like this, and then pass ID. But we don't want to do that. We want to have it here because of reasons that will be explained in a minute. As a matter of fact, it should be now working. And as you can see, we are adding new things and they change the value. If we could add new, we cannot add empty. We add new thing and look at the list. Some are false, some are true right now. And well, correctly as per what you are seeing now, which is exactly what we wanted to achieve. One more thing, what we will do in this example is clear done. So we need to go to the app again, and here we'll create a function called clear to-dos or clear list or whatever. Basically, we don't need to pass anything, and now we will write const clear completed maybe, because we're clearing only the completed. So new to-dos equal to to-dos, and we are filtering the array. We're taking every to-do, and then if the to-do is not completed, if it's completed, sorry, then then it stays. If it's not completed, it stays in the new array. And then update list and pass the new to-dos. And meaning, if the completed is true, right? This is false. And if this is false, then this to-do does not stay in the filtered version. Meaning, if we press clear done, it's not tied yet. So this clear completed should be in this button, the clear done button. We need to add on click listener to pass this and it was clear completed. Right, like just like that. What's the arrow? Okay, and right now clear done. Deleted everything. Beautiful. We can add, we can do whatever, we can clear, we can toggle them. There is some interactivity, minor one, but one more thing. As you can notice, if you refresh the page, well, bad things happen. You lose all the stuff that you had on the page, which if you started writing examples, even examples in this on this stage, that are like, you know, profound as far as the wording is concerned, then you're about to experience bad time when you refresh or when anything basically happens in the build that makes the page refresh. For example, missing this event thing here. So when we pass something, then well, it now refreshes the whole page because of technically a typo. So what we want to do is we want to, when updating the list, let's save it on our computer, actually in the storage of our browser. It will be stored somewhere in the computer. Nobody cares where at this point, but we just want to store it so that whenever we refresh the application, it will be, you know, we'll have access to it again. So it's super easy to do. It's just one line of code. So we'll use the local storage variable and set item. We'll name it to-dos, because it's an easy way to name things. JSON.stringify, and we'll pass new to-dos. The thing that we have in our argument, right? The same thing. And that's it. So now we are technically adding, sorry, not set, but set item, right? So refresh. And yeah, we have got those 5 items right now. Okay, they are not saved. I mean, they are saved, but when we refresh, they are not loaded, right? So that's one more thing to do is implement the way to load. Let's collapse all the functions. So we've got our 4 functions: add, delete, update again. And we'll use yet another use hook, which is named use effect. And this one is used slightly different. Use effect is basically a function that runs anytime component mounts. And when the component will mount to the main component of application, we want to retrieve the data that we had stored in the browser, and we want to use it as our to-dos. So write use effect. We'll import it. Then we open curly brackets, rounded brackets, then the rounded brackets again, which are empty. We'll pass this funny arrow thingy, open curly brackets, and now write const store to-dos, whatever, JSON parse, because we'll be taking something that's stored as a JSON object. We need to parse it, but fortunately JavaScript is at this stage, it's just modern enough to have it under this few characters, the function to do that. So local storage again, and this time not set item but get item, and we need to pass the key, and the key was to-dos. However, if you named it differently here, right? Not this, Jesus. If you named it differently here, you need to pass the same. So you can write like whatever, right? But you need then to copy this thing here. Okay, so the same key should be the same key, because otherwise it will not load the same thing that you saved. Well, easy as that. semicolon, which is not even necessary, and then we, after this curly brackets, we'll pass an empty array, and this empty array, empty array. The empty array means it's an array of dependencies, so-called. It means that this use effect, actually I lied when I said that use effect runs every time the component mounts. In this state, it does only then, once at the beginning. However, if you put some component, some value, some variable here inside this array, you can put A, B, C, D, however many you want. Those variables are so-called dependency array variables, and basically whenever any of these change, use effect will be run. So if you put empty array, use effect will be run only once at the beginning when the component is mounted, and never again. Okay, so let's reset. Let's add something, and then when you reset, sorry, because we have this in variable, but then we need to check if stored variable is something, then set to do's and stored variables will be passed. All right. So now, now we do actually load them. If you refresh, and now clear, refresh, as you can see, everything is working just fine. And one more thing, because technically we've done anything we want. So we are able to delete, we are able to add. There's also some additional utility of, this small interactivity. The thing is looking, it's not, well, ugly, right? It looks decent enough to show to your friends that, look, I've made an application. Basically, it looks, you've got some components that are styled slightly, and you've already seen how to style it, how easy it is to style, how easy it is to change. Well, it's like make the header bigger or whatever. And one more thing would be just a sugar top coating. Will be, I'll be not writing it by hand. So we go to the to-do item, and here we'll paste or write from hand this following line. So import confetti from https //cdn skypack.dev/canvas -confetti, right? And then here in the handle to do, we'll say if item is completed, then we'll run this confetti function, but we'll pass an object, settings object, particle count will set to 200 and spread to 360. And what does it do? As you will see in a second, because now, are you sitting? I suggest you sit before you see this. Voila. This is what we've been waiting for. Clear. Make an apply. Okay, I can make an app in React. I don't know why I've added this exclamation mark. But as you can see, the app is super happy whenever you do anything. Well, if you have problems with procrastination, I suggest maybe you do use an app like this. So basically give this small dopamine boost of confetti going on your screen. All right, so we've done an application. We've seen how to use Vite. Well, basically there's nothing to do with Vite here. It's just that we've used Vite, and it's super fast and super convenient to do. So I suggest that you use the thing I showed you, which is remember that cheat sheet we used. So yeah, use Vite right? So npm create vid at latest my project, name of the project, and template react. Then add tailwind, initialize tailwind, and then do this 2 steps on initialization, and then you'll be able to add the tailwind css inside the class names, which is super handy, and it's better, especially in small or even in bigger projects. And it's just a great way to stylize your application without much need to learn CSS, right? And yeah, so we've covered using functional components, also hooks. We've used 3 hooks. Use state hook to cover the state variable inside functional hook or functional component. Use referential hook for just referencing objects within the DOM tree, and use effect to carry out some maintenance tasks at the beginning whenever the component is mounted. Then we've done some basically crude, so create, read, update, delete functionality on this let's say data set that we are storing the to-dos variable. We've created some pretty interface, and yeah, and we've added some sugar top coating just to make it better. All right, so thank you guys for watching, and I hope you learned something. And yeah, see you in the next video.